in the church.
Yeah, and that difficulty, the stigmata that comes along with it is difficult, especially if you're in ministry, but also in the church. When I've spoken about it in other churches, people always come up and say, you know, I've just haven't had anybody to talk to. Even when I try to talk about it, I get these quick fix answers. And, you know, there are times when God absolutely just reaches down and delivers a person on the spot. Mm-hmm. Heals their mind, their soul, their spirit, their body. I don't like those people.
It wasn't your journey.
It wasn't my journey. And so often we, you know, Paul says when we compare ourselves with ourselves, we're stupid. I mean, that's my paraphrase, but that's basically it. And so each person's journey is unique.
You resigned September 5th, 2004.
Yeah.
From the church at the end of 7 years.
Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant thing. So it was a several-year journey. Lots of factors in that journey and struggles and things. But to be able to come through that, the number one question for me with God was really the essence of Fire in Your Bones, which is not the most intricate book or the most in-depth book I've ever written.
It's very encouraging,
but it was,
that it's your new story.
Yeah, there is hope.
Yeah.
And there is encouragement. But coming through was, God, will I ever experience truly that fire and that passion in my bones for you again? Is it possible to have that joy and that focus as well for where he wants to take me?
What was the most significant refueler for you? What got you from that place of, and I mean, a big point that you make here is the impact on the whole family. It's kind of like a flu.
Yeah.
And the energy gets sucked out of the whole family when you're in this place.
Well, yeah, and that's also, you know, kind of why you struggle, because you don't want to affect everybody else. You're trying to, you know, help hold everything together. And, you know, when one of my children said, you know, you've always been the strong one, this is kind of a weird thing, you know, that you're not the one pulling this all together. And I don't know if there was one significant thing. I mean, what really, you know, there's a journey. This was significant at this moment, and then something else at another moment, and then something else at another moment. And so each of those things along the way, you know, I had a good friend and neighbor who's now pastoring Missouri. He's from Texas, and so had this thing about bonfires and sitting around a fire, which I could never figure out. I mean, you know, why sit at a fire when you got air conditioning, you know, or whatever, or heat. But I'd go out in a very non-judgmental way. We could just talk, and if I couldn't talk, if I didn't feel like talking, he didn't make me talk. He didn't throw a whole bunch of Bible references at me when I was just kind of rambling out stuff, whether it was anger with God or frustration with this or that. He allowed for some of that process. You know, the brain is wired in an interesting way that at least this is what doctors tell me, research, is that the section for anger is connected to the section for communication. And so when you read the New Testament and this sharing our burdens and this free communication within the community of faith that is to be there, this familial relationship where you can talk about anything, you begin to understand. But if we create an environment where you can't be angry at God, where you can't be depressed, you can't be frustrated and still be considered a godly person. You know, we forget that David was depressed,
he poured it all out.
Cursed God, and inspired by the Spirit of God to record those cursings of God in Holy Scripture. And so somewhere we've got this, you know, disconnect there. And so
did your communication with God change, your understanding of who He is through this process?
Yes. I mean, I didn't have any communication with Him for a long time because I just couldn't form anything. Although I, you know, came to know over a period of time more the reality of His presence. Not that I had denied that I hadn't experienced it before, but that fact of going through, am I done? Am I over? Is there still life? God, is there something, can you still utilize me? Or is everything gone? Is there nothing left for your kingdom or for you?
I wish we had more time to talk about the telltale signs, the fine line between burnout and depression.
Yeah,
I had a burnout experience too, and what I found is it's only in looking back to that chapter, like, ooh, I don't ever want to go there again.
And the discouragements that come, that all of us go through, but then there's this piece called clinical depression that somehow affects everything.
Which is different from situational,
Yeah,
circumstantial.
I mean, those things come,
depression.
and the grieving process and all the, different things in life, because we grieve the loss of different things, not just family and friends. But then when does it get to this point where different types of involvement in help through gifted Christian counselors, spiritual development and formation,
Your family's response was fabulous.
medical help. Well, yeah, most of the time, although, sometime past it, one of them said, "We're so tired of you being miserable," and complaining and stuff. And I'm like, yo, I can't help it here, dude. And, but it was good in that. And then really coming back to being able to laugh, being able to be foolish again, because I'm so intense. While I always had a good sense of humor, I think I didn't laugh enough.
So you're a different person on the other side of this painful journey.
I think so.
Which is
a little wilder and crazier. I think
that sounds good.
In a sane way, a little more radical for Christ than, I always have been, but I think it's even more so
More
now.
fire in
More
your bones.
fire, yeah.
More fire.
Yep.
That's a good news story.
Absolutely.
And what I want to hear, just in a capsule, is how is Future Lead going to get to more men who need to talk to somebody, or to churches that need to build a ministry that reaches men who, like you, are struggling?
Well, doing that across the country and elsewhere in the world, equipping pastors and churches in the uniqueness of reaching men. It's different than reaching women, and we haven't quite, there's only one school that I'm aware of that teaches anything and equips any pastors concerning that uniqueness. And it's not that there's a right or a wrong, it's just different. And then, fueling them and helping them find safe places, relationships of trust, which are very difficult for a man to build. Yeah. Less than 35% of Christian men say they have one man in their life that they trust and can tell them anything. Well, you connect that to the New Testament mandate that we're a relational body called the church, interconnected and interdependent. We got a serious thing here. So it's no wonder that men are crashing and burning at an ever-increasing rate. It's escalating. This current economy is stripping away so much of what men have depended upon, Christian and non-Christian men, for finding a source of identity and so forth. And unless we speak biblical truth into their lives in a way in which they can grab hold of it, we're going to see an escalation of fewer and fewer men coming to Christ, and even Christian men leaving Christ.
I'm glad that we have more of you, Glenn, today, but in a coming day. You're going to be sitting down with Jim and talking about men in the pressures of marriage with all of these things in mind. Thank you for the book, Fire in Your Bones, Ignite Your Life with Power. Isn't it good news that you can be as lost and disconnected as Glenn was, and have this hope? If you're in a place where you need encouragement right now, would you call the number on your screen? Allow us the privilege of praying with you and encouraging you today.